Have you ever said to yourself, I'm just a perfectionist, as if that explains why your dream is still on pause? You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, the right plan, the perfect version. But what if you've been getting perfectionism completely wrong? Because here's the truth. What most people call perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear. It's about hiding. It's about protecting yourself from being seen, judged, or even from failing publicly. Brendon Burchard, one of the world's leading personal growth coaches, says something most people miss. Perfectionism is not a badge of honor. It's often a mask for fear. And in this video, we're going to break that mask wide open. We'll uncover what's really behind the idea of I'm a perfectionist. We'll look at how that belief quietly kills your progress, your confidence, and your creative fire. And more importantly, you'll learn how to finally move forward, even when things aren't perfect. Stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see yourself forever. Let's be honest. Perfectionism sounds noble. It makes you feel responsible, careful, committed to excellence. But as Brendon points out, most people who say they're perfectionists are actually procrastinators in disguise. They're waiting. They're waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. They're waiting to feel ready, to feel worthy, to feel enough. And while they wait, life moves on. Opportunities fade. Momentum dies. You see, real high performers, the people who succeed at the top level, they don't chase perfection. They chase progress. They release fast. They learn fast. They act before they feel ready. That's their secret. Brendon once shared a story about working with a creator who had been sitting on a project for 3 years. She said she wanted it to be perfect before she released it. But deep down, she wasn't polishing, she was hiding. Hiding from criticism. Hiding from rejection. Hiding from the possibility that she might give her best and still not be enough. Sound familiar? That's the perfectionist trap. And it's costing millions of people their dreams every single day. In this video, you'll discover what perfectionism really is, not what people say it is. You'll learn the 3 hidden roots that drive it. Fear of judgment, overwhelmed from uncertainty, and the hunger for external validation. We'll explore how each one secretly shapes your mindset and holds you back. And then we'll walk through practical steps to break free. The same tools Brendon teaches to top performers around the world. Because once you understand what perfectionism truly is, you stop letting it control you. You stop saying, I'll do it when it's ready. And you start saying, I'll do it now, make it better as I go. That's where freedom begins. That's where success actually starts. So if you've ever felt stuck because you thought you had to make everything flawless before taking action, this video is your wake-up call. If you've been holding your work, your voice, or your ideas hostage to some imaginary standard, this is your moment to let go. In the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to spot when perfectionism is just fear in disguise. How to shift your focus from flawless to finished. And how to finally start building momentum in your work, your goals, and your life. So stay till the end because the breakthrough you've been waiting for might be in the next few minutes. Welcome to Habits of Greatness, where we uncover the hidden patterns behind success, mindset, and growth. If you're ready to rise above fear, stop waiting for perfect and start living with purpose. You're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, join the journey, and let's begin. Because today, we're not chasing perfect anymore. We're choosing progress. And that single decision could change everything. Before we talk about what perfectionism really is, let's start with what most people think it means. When someone says, I'm a perfectionist, they usually mean they have high standards. They want to get everything right. They care deeply about quality. They pay attention to details most people ignore. They want things to look, sound, and feel exactly right before they share them with the world. On the surface, that sounds like a strength. Society even rewards it. Teachers praise it. Employers hire for it. Social media glorifies it. Be perfect, the culture whispers. Don't mess up. And so people start wearing perfectionism like a badge of honor, proof that they're serious, responsible, ambitious. But as Brendon Burchard often says, what looks like high standards on the outside often hides something much heavier on the inside. Because perfectionism isn't just about wanting to do well, it's about needing to do well or else feeling like you're not enough. And that's where things start to crack. You see, perfectionism doesn't just push you to do your best, it quietly convinces you that anything less than perfect means failure. It whispers that if the final result isn't flawless, then you've wasted your effort, your time, your worth, and that belief traps people. Psychologists have studied this for decades. The research shows a clear pattern. Perfectionists don't actually perform better over time. In fact, they often perform worse. According to studies published in journals like Personality and Individual Differences and even papers referenced on Arxiv, perfectionism leads to a cycle of anxiety, avoidance, and burnout. One of the most fascinating findings comes from what's called perfectionist paralysis. It's the idea that when you're so focused on getting everything right, you can't take the first step. You freeze. You overthink. You revise endlessly. You delay decisions because you fear they'll be wrong. You tell yourself you're not ready yet, but that moment never comes. Think about it. How many times have you rewritten an email 20 times before sending it? Or redone a project because it wasn't quite right? Or avoided starting something entirely because you were afraid it wouldn't be good enough? That's not discipline. That's paralysis disguised as productivity. And that's the danger of the common idea of perfectionism. It tricks you. It feels like you're working hard, but you're really just circling in fear. Brendon Burchard calls this the perfectionist lie, the lie that waiting for perfect is responsible, that not being ready is wise, that fixing just one more thing will make you feel confident, but it never does. Because the perfectionist mind is like a moving target. Each time you reach one level of good enough, your mind moves the line. Suddenly what felt done yesterday feels unacceptable. And so you stay trapped in this endless loop of almost there. But the truth is, most perfectionists aren't chasing excellence. They're running from imperfection. They're terrified of what failure might say about them. They link mistakes with identity. If something they create is flawed, they feel they are flawed. Research from clinical psychology supports this. Perfectionism often correlates with higher levels of anxiety, depression, and self-criticism, not because perfectionists lack talent, but because their self-worth is tied to outcomes. If the result isn't ideal, they see it as proof that they're not enough. And yet, perfectionism keeps pretending to be a good thing. It wraps itself in words like commitment, quality, ambition. It convinces you that if you just care more, try harder, and never settle, you'll finally feel secure. But here's what Brendon points out. True high performers are not perfectionists. They don't delay, they don't obsess, they don't wait for every piece to align. They move, they learn, and they adjust. They value progress over illusion. Perfectionists, on the other hand, often mistake control for care. They think if they control every detail, they can protect themselves from rejection, judgment, or disappointment. But the cost of control is freedom. The more you try to make things flawless, the less room you leave for flow, creativity, or spontaneity. And the irony, the pursuit of perfection often destroys the very quality it seeks. When you're obsessed with not making mistakes, you stop experimenting. When you stop experimenting, you stop growing. When you stop growing, your work loses the energy that made it great in the first place. Perfectionism, then, is not the path to mastery. It's the obstacle to it. Let's take this deeper. In cognitive science, perfectionism is often linked to a fixed mindset, a term coined by psychologist Carol Dweck. It's the belief that your abilities are fixed, that you either have what it takes or you don't. If you believe that, you'll naturally avoid situations where you might fail. You won't risk looking foolish. You won't take bold chances. You'll stay within the limits of what feels safe. Contrast that with a growth mindset, the belief that you can improve through effort, learning, and feedback. High performers live here. They know that failure isn't fatal. It's feedback. They understand that excellence is built through messy, imperfect action, not flawless preparation. Brendon often reminds his audience, you can't perfect what you haven't started. You can't edit a blank page. You can't refine an idea that's still locked in your head. Perfectionism keeps you polishing something that doesn't even exist yet. It's like trying to clean a house that hasn't been built. So when people say, I'm just a perfectionist, they're often saying, I'm scared to be seen, scared to be wrong, scared to be less than what others expect. But because we live in a culture that celebrates flawless, we don't call it fear. We call it standards. That's the illusion. And that's why perfectionism feels so noble. It hides behind the language of excellence, while quietly draining your energy, your time, and your confidence. According to research from the American Psychological Association, perfectionism has risen dramatically over the last few decades. Especially among younger generations, social media has amplified it. Every scroll shows someone else's perfect life, perfect body, perfect career. You start to believe you have to match that level before you can even begin. And so the voice in your head gets louder. You're not ready. It's not good enough. Wait until you have everything figured out. But that voice is lying. It's not protecting you. It's preventing you. That's the real cost of perfectionism. It steals time. It steals potential. It keeps your best work stuck in your head, unseen, unheard, unshared. And maybe that's the part we've been getting wrong all along. Because perfectionism, as most people define it, isn't about doing your best. It's about being afraid that your best won't be enough. And that's where the real conversation begins. Most people think perfectionism is about having high standards. But what if that's not true? What if the thing you've been calling perfectionism isn't about excellence at all, but about fear? Brendon Burchard says that when people use the word perfectionism, they're often naming the wrong problem. They think it's about caring too much or aiming too high. But underneath that label, something deeper is happening. Fear, shame, and the constant need for external approval. Think about it. When you say, I can't start until it's perfect, what are you really saying? You're not saying, I love quality. You're saying, I'm scared to begin because if I start, I might fail. You tell yourself that you're polishing, improving, preparing. But what you're actually doing is protecting your image, protecting your ego, 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 protecting your ego. That's the myth of perfectionism. It isn't a reflection of how committed you are. It's often a reflection of how afraid you are. Brendon says this is one of the biggest traps he sees with high achievers. They use the word perfectionist as a shield. It sounds respectable. It sounds like a virtue. But behind it lies fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of not measuring up. Let's break that down. Roots in one, fear of being seen, judgment. Fear is the first and most powerful root, the kind that hides behind the words not ready yet. You've probably said it before. I'll launch when it's perfect. I'll share it when it's ready. I'll show my work once I fix just one more thing. But the truth is you're not refining, you're hiding. You're not waiting for the project to be right. You're waiting for the risk to disappear. And that's impossible. Brendon Burchard explains that perfectionism often isn't about wanting things to be great. It's about wanting to avoid embarrassment. It's about trying to stay invisible until you can guarantee that no one will criticize you. But as he says, perfectionism often isn't about you. It's about fearing you won't meet someone else's standards. That fear of judgment keeps you stuck. You're not building anymore. You're editing your identity. You're shaping every word, every move, every idea to fit what you think others will approve of. And when you do that long enough, you lose touch with what you actually want. You become more focused on being accepted than on being authentic. And here's the twist. The longer you wait to be perfect before you show up, the scarier it becomes to show up at all. Root 2, overwhelm and uncertainty. The second root isn't fear of people, it's fear of not knowing. Sometimes what we call perfectionism is actually confusion in disguise. You want to move forward, but the path isn't clear. You have too many options, too many ideas, too many possible, and instead of choosing one, you try to figure out the perfect plan first. You tell yourself, once I have it all figured out, then I'll act. But that moment never comes. Brendon often reminds his audience that people get stuck not because they're lazy, but because they're overwhelmed. They think they're being careful. They're not. They're being paralyzed by uncertainty. When you don't know where to start, you convince yourself that the only safe move is to wait, to think a little longer, to plan a little better. You start confusing preparation with progress. But the truth, overthinking is the most elegant form of avoidance. It gives you the illusion of control without the discomfort of action. Brendon says this all the time. You're not stuck because you're a perfectionist. You're stuck because you're afraid of the unknown. You want a perfect map before you take the first step. But life doesn't give maps. It gives movement. And the people who grow, the ones who create, the ones who rise, they don't wait for certainty. They act first, learn second, and adjust as they go. That's how clarity is built, not found. So when you feel like you're too perfect to begin, you're probably just too uncertain to move. And instead of admitting that, you call it perfectionism. It sounds more noble that way. Roots in the 3, external validation and other people's standards. The third root runs even deeper. It's not just fear or confusion, it's identity. Many perfectionists aren't trying to meet their own standards. They're trying to meet someone else's, parents, bosses, teachers, followers, society. Somewhere along the way, they learned that being perfect earns approval, that love, praise, and respect are rewards for flawless performance. And once that belief takes hold, it becomes a lifelong chase. You stop creating for joy. You start creating for applause. You measure your worth by reaction, by likes, by recognition, by validation. And when that validation becomes the goal, you no longer ask, is this true to me? You ask, will they like it? Brendon Burchard warns about this pattern constantly. He says that many people use perfectionism to justify living by other people's expectations. They think they're chasing excellence, but they're really chasing approval. That's why so many high achievers end up unfulfilled. They're winning by the world's standards, but losing by their own. They produce impressive results, yet feel empty because everything they're doing, every polished project, every careful decision is built around avoiding disappointment, not pursuing passion. And here's the irony. The more you seek approval, the more you lose the authenticity that would have earned it. The more you try to be perfect for others, the less they see you. So what happens when these 3 roots, fear, uncertainty, and external validation, come together? You get a cycle of endless hesitation. You don't act because you're afraid. You don't decide because you're overwhelmed. And you don't let go because you need others to approve. That's how perfectionism becomes paralysis. Psychologists even have a name for it. Perfectionary paralysis. It's when your standards are so high that you can't move forward. You get trapped in a loop of constant revision. Every detail becomes a new reason to delay. You might call it high standards, but it's really self-sabotage dressed as excellence. And while it feels like you're protecting yourself, you're actually shrinking yourself. You're holding back your voice, you're censoring your potential, you're choosing comfort over growth, all while telling yourself that you're just trying to get it right. Brendon Burchard says that's the most dangerous illusion of all, because as long as you believe perfectionism is noble, you'll never see the damage it's doing. You'll think you're being smart when you're actually being scared. You'll think you're being disciplined when you're actually being delayed. You'll think you're staying safe when you're actually staying small. And the longer you stay there, the more momentum you lose. Perfectionism built on fear, confusion, or validation doesn't lift you. It locks you in place. It keeps you rehearsing a life you never get to perform. It trades your growth for the comfort of control. That's why so many people feel exhausted, anxious, and unsatisfied, even when they're doing everything right. Because deep down, they're not striving for greatness. They're hiding from rejection. And that's the real myth of perfectionism. It's not about high standards. It's about the fear of being seen as anything less than perfect. So, if perfectionism keeps you trapped, what's the way out? What do you shift toward when you finally decide to stop waiting for perfect? Brendon Burchard says it starts with a mindset shift. From perfect to progress, from ready to moving, from flawless to finished and improving. He reminds us that progress is the real source of confidence. You don't build confidence by thinking, you build it by doing. Each small step, each imperfect action, each moment you show up despite not feeling ready, that's how you grow. The mistake most people make is believing they'll act once they feel confident. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of it. So instead of striving for perfection, strive for completion. Strive for learning. Strive for momentum. Brendon calls this honoring the process. You do what you can with what you have where you are, and then you refine along the way. You don't wait for the storm to stop. You learn how to dance in the rain. That's what a learning mindset is all about. It's about choosing progress over paralysis. It's about realizing that every expert was once an amateur who was willing to look foolish for a while. It's about understanding that mastery is never achieved in silence or safety. It's built through mistakes, feedback, and adjustment. When you stop trying to get it perfect, you finally give yourself permission to grow. Brendon says, you can't perfect what you haven't released. And he's right. You can't improve a video you never publish. You can't fix a product you never launch. You can't refine a skill you never practice. The work must live in the world before it can evolve. So what does that look like in your daily life? Let's turn the shift into something real. Next time you tell yourself, I'm not ready yet, pause. Ask yourself, am I really refining or am I just afraid? Brendon teaches that awareness is the first step to freedom. The moment you can name fear for what it is, it loses some of its power. Fear thrives in disguise. Once you see it clearly, it becomes manageable. Notice the excuses that feel noble but aren't true. I just need to tweak it. I'm waiting for the right timing. I'll start when I feel inspired. These are masks for fear. Pull them off. The goal isn't to be fearless. The goal is to act while you're afraid. Perfectionists overwhelm themselves with impossible standards. They plan to run a marathon before they've taken a walk. They promise themselves they'll change everything overnight, then collapse under the pressure. But momentum comes from small wins. Brendon often says ambition is great, but consistency is greater. If you want to build momentum, start small, one meaningful action each day. Don't aim to crush it. Aim to complete it. You don't have to make it extraordinary. You just have to make it happen. One of the hardest truths to accept is that your best work might not get applause, at least not right away. But that's not the point. Ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for approval? Because if you're creating for validation, you'll always be trapped by other people's opinions. You'll hold back your voice, your style, your originality. Brendon reminds his audience that true confidence comes from self-trust, not social proof. You trust that your effort has value, even when it's unseen. You believe that showing up fully is its own kind of victory. And when you release the need to please, your creativity expands. You start creating from authenticity, not anxiety. You stop asking, will they like it? And start asking, does this feel true? That's where your best work lives. This is where everything changes. The perfectionist waits until something is flawless before launching. The learner launches because they know it will teach them how to improve. Brendon's principle is simple. Version 1 is better than version none. You can fix what's broken. You can polish what's rough, but you can't perfect what you never start. The moment you release your first draft, the first video, the first song, the first project, you enter the real classroom. That's where the lessons are. That's where the growth happens. Waiting for perfect conditions is a fantasy. There's no perfect time. There's only now. When you act now, you build momentum. And once you have momentum, clarity follows. Action creates understanding faster than thought ever could. Perfectionists fear feedback because they see it as judgment. Learners crave it because they see it as data. That's the difference. Brendon teaches that feedback isn't personal, it's informational. It tells you where to grow, not who you are. If someone points out what can be improved, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you've just found the next level. So instead of hiding from feedback, go looking for it. Ask mentors, peers, or even your audience, what would make this better? Then use it. Don't take it as proof you're not good enough. Take it as proof that you're becoming better. The greatest creators, performers, and leaders all share this one habit. They iterate. They launch, learn, and adjust. They don't expect perfection on day one. They expect progress every day. Now, imagine what happens when you start living this way. You begin to move faster. You stop second-guessing yourself. The weight of needing to be flawless starts to lift. You feel lighter, freer, more curious. You begin to enjoy the process again. You don't wake up dreading mistakes. You welcome them because each one brings you closer to mastery. That's when momentum builds. That's when confidence grows. Instead of living in your head, you start living in motion. And that's where the transformation happens, not in thinking, not in planning, but in doing. Brendon often says when you stop hiding behind perfectionism, you step into your purpose, because your purpose isn't to impress, it's to express. When you focus on progress, you open yourself to life. You start serving instead of proving. You start creating from love, not fear. You stop waiting to be ready, because you finally realize ready is a choice. And in that choice, something beautiful happens. You stop chasing the illusion of perfect. You start living the reality of growth. Every day becomes a chance to improve, to learn, to serve. That's how the great ones do it. Not by waiting for everything to align, but by showing up again and again, refining as they go. Because perfection isn't the goal. Progress is the path. And that path, the messy, brave, unfinished one, is where greatness is actually found. So let's bring this home. What you've called perfectionism all this time, that pressure to get everything flawless before you start, might not really be about standards at all. It might be about fear of being judged, uncertainty about what comes next, or the quiet need for someone else's approval. But here's the truth Brendon Burchard teaches. Perfectionism doesn't protect you. It pauses you. It keeps your gifts locked inside because you're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect you. The antidote is simple. Action over waiting. Progress over perfection. You don't need to be perfect to start. You need to start to become great. So here's your challenge. Pick one project, one idea, one dream you've been delaying because it's not ready yet. Do version 1 today. Post it, share it, build it, or just begin it. Don't aim for perfect. Aim for real. Because your best isn't flawless. It's authentic. It's started. And that version, the one you dared to begin, is already making a difference. If this video inspired you, hit that like button. It helps this message reach more people who need it. And if you want more content like this on growth, mindset, and taking action, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Habits of Greatness. Remember, your best doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to begin.